top of the chart is where you'll put basic information like your name, your age, the month and year, the cycle number, which if you're first starting this month, that would be number 1, the shortest of your last 12 cycles, and the longest of your last 12 cycles. And it's okay if you don't know that, you can just leave it blank for now. And then of course the current is for your current cycle length, so for now we'll leave that blank. Next you have the cycle days, which are automatically filled in for you. Of course, day number 1 is the first day you get your period, so that's where your starting point is from. Underneath that you have the day of the week. Some people find this helpful to fill it in, others don't. For me, I just put in what day it is, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so on and so forth. And then underneath that you can put in the day of the week. The row underneath that is for your luteal phase, but you don't have to fill it out yet because you won't be recording that until a little bit later on in your cycle. Now that we've gotten kind of the top general information filled in, what you'll do is every day you'll fill out one day. So this column here of number 1, you'll fill that information out. Usually I do it right before I go to bed. So let's start by looking at a day and seeing what types of information we'll be recording. First up, you'll record your temperature here. Now, of course, that's your waking temperature before you get out of bed, before you do anything. You'll record your temperature and then mark it down here in the chart. So let's say that my waking temperature was 97.5. I would go ahead and circle that for day 1, and then I can proceed to mark down the other information. I can mark if I had sex or not, and then of course I can mark my second fertility sign, which is my cervical fluid. Since this is the first day of my cycle, it's also the first day of my period, so the only one I'll mark right now is the period. Okay, underneath that you'll mark your vaginal sensation. This one can be a little bit trickier, but mostly just pay attention to how you feel throughout the day. Does it feel wet? Does it feel dry? And just mark that down in your chart. Okay, on to the third fertile sign, which is your cervical position. There's 3 categories here. The F stands for firm, the M stands for medium, and the S stands for soft. You don't have to record your cervical position while you're on your period, so I'm just going to leave that blank. After that, you have a couple of rows where you can put other symptoms you may be experiencing through your menstrual cycle. For me, it was really helpful to chart some of these because I didn't know that there was a pattern until I started charting, and then I could kind of watch out for it. And actually, I warn my husband at the end of my cycle when I'm starting to feel grouchy so that he knows it's coming and I know it's coming. Alright, we're almost done with the end of our day. The only category left would be notes, where you can put in things like big moves if you're moving across the country that can definitely affect or delay ovulation. If you have other major stresses in your life, like a project you're trying to rush to get done at work, or if you've been sick with the flu for a couple days, that can definitely also affect your temperature, of course. So that's what it looks like to fill out one column, which represents one day. Let's see what it looks like when you get a little bit closer to ovulation. You'll notice that after your period ends, you may have a couple days of dry. For the dry, you can just mark a dashed line, and that will represent the dry days. Of course, if you start to feel sticky or creamy cervical fluid, you can mark that down in the upcoming days as well. Your cervical fluid, most likely you should be experiencing egg white, which is the fertile cervical fluid. That starts getting produced a couple of days before you ovulate, anywhere from 1 to 5 days before. As far as your cervical position goes, you should notice your cervix withdrawing back towards the uterus and opening up a little bit, getting a little bit softer, and that should usually happen in the couple of days leading up to ovulation. This is how you can pinpoint when you're about to ovulate, which can be very helpful, not only if you're trying to prevent pregnancy, but also especially if you're trying to achieve pregnancy. Once you ovulate, your temperature does something kind of cool. It will jump up to show you that you've ovulated. As soon as your temperature jumps up, you can record something called your cover line. To add your cover line, what you're going to do is you'll take the 6 temperatures before your temperature shift, and then what you'll do is you'll draw a cover line 1/10 of a degree above those previous 6 temperatures. This way you can clearly see if you're jumping above or dropping below that line during your luteal phase. Typically though, if you don't have any health problems or health issues, your temperature should remain elevated above the cover line for the entirety of your luteal phase. And of course, once it drops back down, that usually means that your period is on the way. Usually after you've ovulated, you'll notice that your cervical fluid dries up a little bit. It should go back to either dry or sticky during your luteal phase. Your cervical position will drop back down to firm and low, and your vaginal sensation will probably feel a little bit more dry. During your luteal phase, the temperatures remain elevated for about anywhere from 10 to 16 days. Then they'll drop back down, and that's when you'll get your next period.